Hey everybody, welcome to the Dad Challenge podcast. My name's Josh. Today we're talking about Shari Franke's book that was just released. I'm about a third of the way through it. It's like a 7-hour Audible, so I'm about 2 hours into it, and there are some craziness already. But she also did an interview on Good Morning America, and we want to take a look at that interview and see what she has to say, and recap the whole 8 passengers thing in case those you have not heard about it, which is crazy. I'm sure you have. But we're going to recap it, and I'm going to encourage you to get Shari's book. Okay, so let's get to it. Okay, so if you don't know anything about the 8 passengers thing, I've been covering 8 passengers since as early as I've been covering Micah Stauffer. 8 passengers was actually the second family vlogger I started covering, and I think it's one of the most watched videos on my channel, actually. This is when I started waking up to the dangers of family vlogging. 8 passengers was kind of a look into that, and I've obviously had, a gut instinct about them since day one. You can go back and watch any of my early videos, and I was dead on, literally, about Ruby the whole time. The entire time, okay? And also, they put milk on cake, which was really weird. But one of the funniest moments on my channel is when the revelation of people putting milk on cake was brought to my attention, okay? But other than that, it's a dead serious topic, with a lot of sadness and heartbreak and torture and prison sentences and everything else. And obviously the Mormons are at the center of the whole thing, LDS, whatever you want to call them. And to this day, Shari is still kind of part of that cult, which is okay. I mean, whatever. Do what you got to do. I one day honestly believe that Shari will wake up to that. She's very intelligent. She's going to wake up to that one day, I promise. But all that to say, she wrote a book on the whole fiasco, and the whole fiasco goes like this. Okay, so 8 Passengers was a channel that grew. All the sisters and brothers all had their own channels in the Griffiths family, okay? And what I learned from the book, actually, is that Bonnie and Ellie had their channels before Ruby did. Ruby just jumped on after she realized her sisters were making money, and then 8 Passengers grew to the biggest channel of all of them because she had 6 kids, and Ruby's just is a character in herself, and she was just unapologetically giving everything to everybody, which all the other sisters did too, especially Bonnie, for sure. And I know I have a special hatred for Bonnie Hoagland, everybody. I know that. I know I'm biased. But as far as the personalities and the parenting styles are, Bonnie and Ruby are the almost exact same. I think Bonnie might even be a little bit worse. That's what I'm saying to you. And so as I read Shari's book, it actually makes me more scared for Bonnie's kids. Although I think that Shari might have saved her cousins' lives by writing an expose tell-all book about the parenting style of these girls, being Shari or being Ruby and Bonnie and Ellie, because Bonnie now is going to have, has already had a microscope under her, but is going to have even more of a microscope. If her kids ever speak out against her parenting style, Bonnie is absolutely terrified about what's coming out of this, for sure. And I'm obviously connecting those dots because those two are they are almost exactly the same in their personalities and parenting styles. I think even, again, I'll say it again, Bonnie is a little bit even worse, I think. Okay? Crazy with a capital Z. And why? Also, Bonnie decided to escape to Florida because because I guess she thinks Florida doesn't have the internet or something. I don't know. It's crazy that Bonnie just escapes Utah, Arizona, wherever they are, because what's the point? People are gonna find you. But she's so scared of what's coming out, she decided to escape on another vacation. Anyway, that's an aside. I'll do another video on that. But Shari's book so far is excellent. Now, it looks like she's had a ghostwriter, and that's awesome. Doesn't matter to me. The book is so well written. People who have stories to tell often hire ghostwriters or writers, where they sit with the writer, and the writer just helps them express their thoughts in a way that's easy to read, okay? It's really, really well done. A book like that, one of my favorite books like that, is called Devil in Pew Number 7. And if you haven't read The Devil in Pew Number 7, please do yourself a favor. Shari, if you're watching this, please go read it too. That girl suffered a massive amount of religious trauma, church trauma, through her dad being a pastor, and she wrote this story, and it's probably one of the best written books I've ever read in my life, and it was obviously written by a ghostwriter. These people who write for a living who are very talented at it. Now, Shari's also, you can tell that she's kind of a bookworm, a little bit of a nerd in her book as she talks about it, and I just don't think that she wrote this entire book. But it is so far really, really, really good, and we're getting all the tea as so it speaks, about 8 passengers and the beginnings of all of it. A lot of it we knew already because, you know, Ruby overshared their entire lives forever and ever. So as it goes, 8 passengers became quite popular. Ruby then, you know, was a very well-loved character on the internet, and all the sisters, and they enjoyed a massive amount of fame and attention and money for a lot of years until everything started falling apart. The facade started falling apart, and the facade started falling apart after the Micah Stauffer situation happened and the internet started waking up to child exploitation. Nobody really cared before that, but as soon as people started waking up to the dangers of child exploitation, people started going back and watching videos and previous videos and putting it all together. Kind of like Hannah Byatt or Hannah Hyatt, whatever, Nurse Hannah, you remember her? She's back too. We'll do a video on her. But she just did content galore. No one really caught anything until they realized this kid could have been being abused, and then they went back and tied everything together by watching all the content she put on the internet, which is what happened with Ruby. I think it all started falling apart for Ruby the moment that she started crying about her kids trying to I mean, it was all before that, but one of the big fallouts was when she was sitting in her car, not complaining, actually like flexing that she's not going to give her 5-year-old a lunch because her 5-year-old didn't make her own lunch. And people were like, "Excuse me?" And then people started looking back and then realizing the trauma she was inflicting on her children. Like one of her kids had a stuffed animal she liked and she threatened to cut its head off, and the kid started crying. And then people started realizing that Ruby's a tyrant, is an absolute tyrant. And then all of a sudden one day passengers disappeared after all this drama. I remember one point that Ruby pulled over her vehicle because there was an accident because she had to film it for content. It wasn't even her accident. She wasn't in the accident. She just was filming it because she's so giddy and high off of it. It was so crazy to see. She talked about her kids' periods, shaving their legs, first kisses, zits, teeth. She exposed everything about her children, every single detail about their lives. There was one moment that the kids were sitting down with her, talking about how they have no friends, and she was laughing at them. She's the most cold and callous woman I've ever seen on this platform, and that's including Micah Stauffer, okay? And that's saying a lot. To the point where people were starting to really wake up. She started getting a lot of hate, and it was much deserved. Okay, it was much deserved. Until the point, again, 8 passengers one day disappeared, and everybody starts going, "What the hell's going on?" And then it all came to light that this crazy lady called Jody Hildebrandt was starting to put her tentacles into the life of the 8 passengers and Ruby Franke, and Ruby was basically in a cult with her, and she started believing everything Jody was throwing at her, and it ended up being like she started torturing her children, and now she's in prison for at least 4 years, we think, if not hopefully 30. I hope she's in jail for the rest of her life with Jody. I think they should never be released for the things that they did to their children. Like, if she wasn't caught, it is my belief that those children would have died. Like, they were very close to death already. So it's my opinion that if she was continued unchecked, she would have died. And it's also my opinion that Kevin completely failed his children, which is the father of this family. He's gotten away with almost no scrutiny whatsoever. No charges, nothing. Everybody's like, "Oh, Kevin," like, this guy was their father and didn't do anything about any of it, and had parental rights to do things, and never, ever did. Okay, so he's to blame as well. Obviously, Ruby and Jody are more to blame. Ruby ultimately takes the brunt of most of the blame. She's the hierarchy of all the blame. But there are a lot of people that failed these kids, including their immediate family and their additional family, like the Holines and Ellie and Jared and the grandparents. Nobody was calling the police. And in the book, Shari alludes to the fact that only Shari and then some neighbors were calling DCFS. Not Kevin, not Bonnie, not Ellie. None of them were. That's what she alludes to. She doesn't say that they did it, and maybe they did, I don't know. But it's been my stance on this channel that the family didn't do enough because they were scared of what it would do to their channels. They knew it was going on, and they were scared of what it would do to their channels. They were more worried about their money and their pocketbooks and their fame and their followers than anything else. And it's come out. Remember when Bonnie and her husband were having a big fight about like what Shari's book, and that Shari was saying things online and it's stressing them out? You know that Bonnie's getting stress sits from this book. 100%. She deserves every stress sit she has. I hope you have stress sits on your ass, Bonnie. Okay, I hope you have ass sits all over the place. I hope you get stung by mosquitoes 1 million times while you're in Florida. Okay, you're an asshole. That whole family is asshole. Okay. So that's where we are at this point. Shari decides to write a book, which I'm reading right now, and I'm going to get into where I am right now up to chapter 15 or something like that. I'll tell you all about it. Spoiler alerts. But I also want you to make sure you go read the book. You go buy the book. Even if you're not going to read it, support Shari in this endeavor. This is a whistle. She's basically whistleblowing on family vlogging and exactly what it is. Not just her family, but on family vlogging in general. And that's why Bonnie Holing decided to escape and run away to Florida. Like, that's going to help for some reason. What an idiot. Right? She takes her kids out of school and escapes because she doesn't want the scrutiny. But basically what Shari is doing here is she's putting on her armor and she's going to battle against family vlogging because she was one of the OGs that was taken advantage of in this community. And to this day, there are still kids like her out there and parents don't give a shit. And so thank you to Shari for coming out with this incredible book and for telling your story, because it's telling a lot of kids' story. And I think a lot of kids who are in this industry might get to read your book and start realizing, yeah, this is crazy. And I think especially Bonnie's kids, your cousins, Shari, are going to read this and they're going to wake up. This shitstorm coming Bonnie's way, no one else is more deserving of it. I'll promise you that. That's what my gut is telling me. And I'm rarely wrong. Okay, very rarely wrong about this because it's all etched out right in front of our eyeballs. We just have to see the patterns. So Shari goes on Good Morning America. So let's take a look at this before I get into the book so far, what we're talking about. Again, and I will reiterate, go buy the book. Go buy it right now. It's on Audible. Shari is the one actually narrating it. It's good. She's doing a great job at it, trying to hold it all together while she's remembering these things. Buy the book, buy the hard copy, buy the whatever you can get your hands on to support her. I'll keep saying that throughout this whole video. So watch this.
Now we're going to go to our GMA exclusive with the eldest daughter of mom influencer Ruby Franke, who pleaded guilty to child abuse last year. Shari Franke is now sharing her story in a new book, including allegations about her mom's relationship with her former mentor. She spoke with Eva Pilgrim, and good morning again to you, Eva.
If you don't want spoilers, don't watch this video anymore, okay? Also, if you don't want spoilers, don't go on the Reddit. There are spoilers. I mean, it's a true story, so it's not really about spoilers, but if you want to learn it yourself, don't go on Reddit.
Good morning again, Michael. Shari Franke knows so much of her life has been out there in the headlines, but now she's taking back her story, writing a memoir, carefully sharing her experience.
She was the Utah mommy influencer known for her no-nonsense parenting.
I'm only going to say it one more time, and then you're going to lose the privilege to eat dinner.
And just so boldly putting this on the internet, like, and on camera, like, you're gonna lose the privilege to eat. And she took Christmas away from her kids right before the channel went down, like, and legitimately did. Filmed other kids opening presents while those two other children didn't get Christmas. This absolute Skeletor asshole.
Ruby Franke sharing her life at home with 6 children to her more than 2 million followers on YouTube.
Today we are starting off our day the way we do every day.
But Ruby's social
with abuse.
Social media empire quickly unraveled when her youngest son escaped in August of 2023. This chilling 911 call leading to her arrest.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. And he's said he just came from a neighbor's house. He's emaciated. He's got tape around his legs.
Now, for the first time...
Go back and watch the coverage, any channel who's covering that, okay? That's one of the most horrific things we've ever seen. We've seen the photos of it. We saw the safe in the basement, the extra subfloors of this mansion. Crazy what she did to her children. Like, it actually is torture. We're not saying that to be like, you know, oh, it's actual what she did to her children. It's bananas what she did.
Ruby's eldest daughter, Shari, is telling her story in a new memoir, The House of My Mother.
Sometimes I'll like see myself in the mirror and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I look like her.
Not a lot. You're good. You're good. You don't look as much like her as you think, which is good.
Or I sound like her, but I don't want to be anything like her.
Shari, who says she was cut off from the family when she left for college, detailing abuse she says her mother inflicted throughout her childhood.
When I was younger, around like 5, 6, like Ruby was really physical. Like, you know, whether it was like a slap to the lip or a slap to the cheek. When I would practice the piano, you know, like her hand would slam and like, it was really scary. And honestly, when she met Jody, that kind of stopped.
Enter Jody Hildebrandt, a Mormon family counselor and mentor to Ruby.
Could you feel the shift when Jody came into your family's life?
Of course, the presence shifted in the house. You literally invited a demon into the home. Okay, yeah. And I don't want to give her an out saying that she's demonically possessed or anything like that, because that's an out. She's just an evil person. And everybody who's ever met an evil person, like a truly evil person in her life, you know what you've met. You know the vibe shift. You know the energy is different on a truly evil person. And they exist. They honestly exist.
You know, I don't like her, but maybe this is one good thing that's come from it, is she's not yelling, she's not hitting us anymore. But it did become more psychological, and in a way that was more damaging to me.
In 2022, Hildebrandt moved into the Franke home. The children's father,
Which is crazy, because she had a massive ass mansion in Arizona.
Kevin, moved out shortly after.
I certainly got weird vibes from Jody and Ruby. I don't think it's normal at all that a therapist would move into her client's home. I was moving out to college and I hadn't even left the house yet, and she is in my room and in my bed.
What was that relationship between
Yo, lady, that's my bed.
the two of them?
Ruby tried to be secretive about it, and so I don't know all the details, but just the vibes that I was getting was that something was strange between them.
What she's saying is that they were practicing lesbianism. Is that a word? They were lesbian. They were having sex. And so, spoiler alert, I guess, whatever is what's happening. We all knew that, obviously. Jody gives off the vibes of 100% of a closeted lesbian. I guess not closeted anymore. I guess she's just outed by Shari. But this is what she psychologically did this to a lot of married couples. She would isolate the men from the wives and would take advantage of the wives. It's going to come out, a lot of them are probably super ashamed because they still live in the Mormon culture and they don't want their business out there. Even if they are not to blame for it, they still don't ever want anybody to know, because that's a super big no-no in the Mormon church to be gay. Super big no-no, floating in the outer darkness, TK Smoothie, no-no. That's how bad it is, okay? But Jody clearly is a predator who would prey on these emotional people in the worst parts of their marriage, would literally coerce them into breaking up and then take advantage of the women. And Ruby was one of them.
In the book, Shari writing about messages between the two she says she found on Ruby's laptop after their arrest.
And that was the laptop that Shari went into the home to get, that Kevin called the police on her. She wanted the laptop. She wanted to get the inside scoop for her book, and I'm glad she did it.
That confirmed for me the truth about the nature of her relationship with Jody and how it had spilled over into the physical.
There you go.
Ruby expressing her frustration about having to cater to Jody's needs for physical affection without getting anything in return.
Ew. And Jody. Ugh.
Were they romantically involved with each other?
I never saw anything specific
But you read text messages.
about that.
Do you think they were more than friends?
I'm not sure.
I don't know why she's being so, why she's not just going to say, yeah, in my opinion, yes. It's just because you didn't see it. You read text messages in your book that they did that. I don't know why she's doing that. Whatever, it's her prerogative, but just tell the truth. You know it that they were. Because you said in the book that they were.
ABC News reached out to Ruby and Hildebrandt for comment, but did not hear back. Both women
They're in prison.
pleaded guilty to 4 counts of child abuse against the 2 youngest children, but not Shari, and will serve at least 4 years in prison.
To my babies,
Should be 40.
my 6 little chicks.
Shut up, bitch.
You are part of me.
Did you believe that she was apologetic?
I think that she's as sorry as she can be. What she has done is so bad that I don't think her mind allows her to kind of fully comprehend the guilt of all that. And so I think that she probably genuinely believed everything she said. I don't believe it, though.
Shari, you should go to law school. You should.
Shari now trying to turn her pain into purpose,
There is no such thing as a moral or ethical family vlogger.
advocating to restrict family vlogging with
That's the most important thing she's ever said. There's no such thing as a moral or ethical vlogger. No, doesn't exist, especially when it comes to children. I mean, there are moral and ethical vloggers, but not family vloggers. It cannot be, and you're hearing it from the mouth of the kid, one of the kids that was exploited in this industry. Okay? There is no such thing. That's why it's so black and white. There is never going to be an excuse to be able to do this. And I don't care what walk of life you're in, how in dire straits you are. There is never going to be an excuse to exploit children for your own personal gain. I think we can all agree on that, right?
children too young to consent.
Is there anything that you would say to Ruby if you had the chance?
Probably tell
Go F yourself.
her I'm happy without you.
That's her way of saying go F yourself.
I was scared of her for so long, and I am pure without her approval, and I am just fine.
Have you forgiven Ruby?
Forgiveness is something I've had to study a lot and kind of think about what it means. But for me, forgiveness would look like not letting that consume every moment of my life and all of my thoughts. I am just trying
What
to...
a dumb question, from this. No? She tortured my brother and sister. No? She abused us for our whole lives. Why would... I mean, not to that degree. I have my personal story where my mother and I came to a point in our lives when she was dying where we did reconcile, but it took literally, weeks before she died for her to have the realization and to come and apologize for being a bad mother. It's always at a moment where everything else is falling apart, including death for people. So it's not my prerogative to say, no, you're not forgiven. It's so stupid for me to say that. But at the same time, I would never blame Shari for not forgiving her mother, right? I would never, ever in a million. I don't think any of us would.
Move on with my life and trust that things are going to work out the way they're supposed to.
Here's the saddest part about the Franke kids too. None of them are ever going to be able to have a normal life as long as they live. Ever. And that's all the fault of Kevin and Ruby. And Bonnie and Ellie and everybody who convinced them to do all this stuff. None of these children who are in family vlogs, none of them will be able to have a normal life because they didn't have a normal adolescence. Every moment, every waking moment is shared for strangers on cameras. Okay? They'll never be able to experience a normal childhood. And we'll get into Shari's book in a minute, especially when it comes to high school. None of them will. You are stealing something, not only privacy, but you are stealing normalcy from your children when you put them in the spotlight. And that includes child actors, by the way. Okay? You are stealing something so valuable to a child, and you should never be forgiven for it. This should never have ever been a conversation. The fact that we steal children's whole childhoods for our own financial gain. People do. Parents do. And we often overlook that part of it.
And we know Shari reached out to authorities about alleged abuse of her younger siblings multiple times without help. We reached out to the Utah Department of Child and Family Services, and they cited their policy of privacy. Shari is now focused on...
Of course, yes. Yeah. We don't share anything, even when we mess up, because that's our... how convenient for DCFS. Oh, we can't share anything. Obviously you can't, because you messed up. You should be, defunded, and there should be a new police force or stuff. DCFS is a bag of shit in every aspect, in every country, as far as I'm concerned. Here in Canada, in the US, they fail more kids than they help. Let's be real, okay? They fail so many kids. Oh, we can't comment on its privacy. Of course you can't. Convenient for you. We investigated ourselves, and we've come to the conclusion that we ourselves are innocent of anything, of any wrongdoings. That's what it's giving. Okay, so F off, DCFS, you bunch of assholes.
Rebuilding her relationship with her siblings and her father, who told ABC News he is proud of his daughter. The house of my mother.
I'm proud of her, but I also called the police on her.
A Daughter's Quest for Freedom is available now, and she has some good news in her life. She was just engaged. She posted it on Instagram.
Yeah, she's engaged. Congrats, Shari, to that. Now I got my notes here for Shari's book, and I want to talk to you about it. So far, again, this is all going to be, if you read it yourself, a lot of you aren't, but I encourage you to at least buy it, okay? To support Shari in this. She's put it out. Everybody's talking about it on Reddit. So again, if you don't want spoilers, don't listen to the rest of this podcast, okay? But, so Shari releases a book. It's right off the top. It's really well written. I can tell it's written by a very good author. I don't know who it is. I'm sure Shari has a lot to do with it too. It's very, very, very good. Okay, it's really well worded, really well written, and really well articulated. And it really just, I mean, no spoiler. We were all right about everything. Like everything that happens to these children, we were all right about it. So in chapter 1, I mean, overall, the first thing that came out in my mind was that DCF was called. This is in the intro of the whole book. DCF was called, but only by Shari and the neighbors. Now, I said this earlier, but it seems like she is saying on purpose that she doesn't know, or didn't even say. She didn't even say family. She just said by me and the neighbors, the only people who called DCFS, the only people who cared about these kids. I'm going to rail on Ellie and Bonnie and the grandparents and all the other people and Kevin because they didn't. They did not step up and do whatever it took to make sure these kids were safe. They just didn't give a shit. They cared more about their channels and what it looks like on their channels than anything else. I again will reiterate this. Bonnie has 2 million subscribers? Collectively they have millions of subscribers between them all. It would only have taken one video to be like, guys, we're really concerned about our nieces and nephews. Would you help us figure this out? Like one damn video. And they, to this day, they like almost refuse to talk about it, right? Bonnie's had a couple of things, but only about her sister, not about anything else, right? And you know, and everybody's like, well, it's their privacy. Like, does she, why, now she cares about privacy? No, she doesn't. No, she doesn't. Because she still to this day exploits her children. To this day. If not more now than ever, because she's like, in defiance of Shari. She's like, Shari can't tell me what I can do and can't do. But Shari, you get out there and you tell your truth. Because it's actually exposing this asshole like Bonnie. Okay? And I'll tell you this. They had the opportunity to do something about it and they didn't. And they didn't do everything they could do, even if they said they did something. Because they have massive channels where they could mobilize their fans to help these kids, and they never did one thing. Just a bunch of greedy dickheads. So chapter 1 talks about Ruby. She went to college specifically not to get an education, but to find a mate. And that's where she met Kevin. Her ideal man was her dad, I guess, was Kevin, I guess. And Ruby, she tells a story about how Ruby was holding hands under the blanket with him, and he was 4 years older than her at the time. And he looked over and she's holding hands with another dude, like at the same time. Like in Mormon culture, that's a thought. Okay, that's thought behavior in Mormon culture. 2 dudes at the same time? Ruby, you friggin' charlatan or whatever. Whore of Babylon. So Kevin laid down the law and said, no more holding hands with other guys. And then she's like, oh, you're the guy for me then, because you told me what to do. Basically, that's how they got together. Because Kevin was upset she was holding hands with another guy at the same time. Instead of dodging this giant red flag, he's like, no, you're mine. Basically, nope. You're going to hold hands with the same guy, a different guy at the same time as me? Bye, bitch. I'm going to go find me another Mormon girl, because y'all look the same anyway. Okay? 2 weeks after going steady, they were engaged. And I wrote here, f***ing idiots. Stop, Mormons. Your leadership needs to, and they don't want to do this. They want kids to get married young and whatever, so they can justify pedophilia through Joseph Smith. But they want this. The church wants kids to get married young, so they have a ton of kids and tied to the church, okay? But what they need to do, the leadership needs to do, is tell these kids to wait a little bit and live a little bit of life before they get married. But the reason they get married so young is so they can have sex. I'm not even kidding you. The Mormon church, LDS, and Christians, any fundamentalist religion, looks at sex before marriage as like akin to murder. It's the worst thing you could do. Murder is probably a little bit worse, but like sex before marriage and like that kind of stuff is like, oh, the audacity. Like that's and I'm here to tell you, Christians, Mormons, everybody else, if that's the only reason you're getting married is to get it wet, just get it wet. Just go have sex, okay? Just go get it done, okay? It's not worth ruining your entire life over and being literally shackled to somebody that you might not have a good life with for the rest of your life and be in an abusive relationship. So many abusive relationships inside the Mormon church and inside the Christian church, okay? Because obviously divorce is looked down upon, but they are coerced into getting married young after not even knowing each other. 2 weeks and you're engaged? Are you out of your mind? Everybody's like, well, it works for some people. Sure it does. But look how it turned out here. Anyway. I called her a hussy in my notes. Hussy. So anyway, chapter 2, Shari talks about her dad a little bit, where he comes from. He comes from a large family, all that kind of stuff. And then it talks about when they get together, start having babies. And then Shari tells a story about how she almost died when she was a baby. And Ruby didn't believe in comforting babies. And we've seen this behavior through Ruby throughout her whole channel. So yeah, and we can see that throughout the channel that Ruby is that type of girl. She doesn't coddle her children. She's not a very good mother. She's very much just like, let them deal with it, let them grow up. She's a hard mother. She's like a prison warden instead of a mother, right? She believed that kids should cry it out and they don't need that. They need to be independent. And some people like this, they're called cold-hearted assholes. She said kids shouldn't be crybabies, but Ruby herself was a crybaby, in everything, always cried. So obviously she's a hypocrite too, obviously. I mean, how could she get worse? Well, she's a hypocrite too. Ruby always had the air that everything was inconvenient. So if a kid was crying or had to go to the hospital, everything was inconvenient to her because it interrupted her life. Remember that time she sat in the bathtub and she's like, I'm waiting, taking some time to myself, having a bath, getting ready. One of her kids needed desperately to go to the hospital, but Ruby's like, I need this time for me, before she took her kid to the damn hospital. And she puts this on camera. I have the video. She puts it on camera. Here's the video. You're vlogging. Dumbass. You're not doing shit. You're sitting there with the camera in your tub, you weirdo.
Mopping the floor. I'm stalling.
What are you... Her pinky toe's weird. It's like it didn't grow all the way. Weird. I'm not one to speak. My pinky toe weird too. It is.
I think Kevin and I are going to take Shari to the emergency room today. When I leave this bathroom, I want to be completely available to Shari.
Sorry, let me stop you there for a second. What? Mm-hmm. You need to take your kid to the emergency room, so you're stalling? What do you mean you're stalling?
Watch what she says. Watch what she says.
Do you understand the word emergency room? You're going to an emergency thing, so you're stalling by cleaning? What is she saying here? I can't be available to my kid unless I clean my bathroom? What?
I'm outraged.
Does Shari, when she edits these things,
Ruby.
Is she just a troll?
I kept saying Shari, but it's Ruby. I keep getting them mixed up.
Is she doing this on purpose? Does she think that people are going to agree with her? I don't understand how anybody who has any semblance of any brain can think that that's okay to say something like that. My kid needs to go to the emergency room. I'm stalling.
And able to support her in any way that she needs.
So you want to support her in any way she needs, but before you do all that, you need to have an hour-long shower. You need to mop. You need to avoid your family. You need to clean the sink. You need to wear this ugly-ass frock and put lipstick on and everything else before you're there for your daughter? That sounds like you're really selfish and you need to be there for yourself.
I just paid myself watching this.
Before you can help your children. Oh my God. Ugh. Ugh. Ew.
And so I just keep staying in the bathroom. I think I'm ready now. I think I'm ready to leave. And I'm just going to leave my hair like this. It can just air dry.
Ruby, you are the most selfish parent I've ever come across in all of the family vlogs I've ever done. Mm-hmm. And I've done some doozies. But when it comes to the absolute selfish nature and the admittance of how selfish you are, bar none, you are the most selfish, disgusting parent I've ever seen in my life.
Look at the numbers on. I didn't know I didn't release this. I'm put it up now, and it just went up 100 views in like the time we've been watching this. I forgot I did. Why didn't I put this out? Weird. Anyway, that's what happened there. I don't know why I did that, but so that was her just being selfish. So that's Ruby. Always had to say that, had the air that everything was inconvenient. Everything's inconvenient to her. Everything's always about her. And if the kids are like not acting like grown-ups, it's really weird that she would act this way. She would just be like, she would put on camera for everybody to see. I hope that when it comes down for her to be released or to talk about being released, someone compiles a video of all her worst moments and they gets to be shown, because that's crazy. She'd not be released from prison ever. I think she belongs in jail for the rest of her life for what she did. So chapter 3 gets into Chad is born. Talks about a dog being there and was like the only help that Shari really had. Shari protects her siblings in the book by not saying their name, which is great for Shari. It's awesome. The blog was a front, and the excuse was so she started a vlog. This is before the vlog. She started a blog about recipes and life, and she like every family vlogger out there uses that as an excuse to, like, I want my kids to be able to see these videos in the future and read the things I read in the future. And to some degree, I believe that some of the people did start, because they started this back when it was fledgling. It was very new. And so some people do. I want my kids to have a ton of videos and pictures and things that they can see too. I get that. I understand that. But, and I was doing it. I would put my kids' births on the internet before I was ever known by anybody. And they were literally birthed on the internet. Like, there's videos of them where my wife and I would sing a song and put that on, but it was for family. It was for family. And I privated that once I started realizing that makes me a hypocrite to be a person on the internet with thousands and thousands of subscribers and have that on there. So I obviously made it private. My kids still watch those videos to this day all the time. Okay, but they are private. And anybody who makes that excuse like, oh, I'm doing TikToks for my kids and we can watch this in the future. But all you have to say to them for that argument is just make it private then. You don't have to put it on your hard drive. Why does that have to be shared with millions of people? That's always what you can say. That argument is so stupid. The blog was not authentic, Shari says. Ruby would smack and yell and hit, so she'd be physically assaulting and abusive to these children a lot. Even as a kid, you weren't allowed to complain in that house. But Ruby was allowed to complain, and all she did was effing complain. We have tons of videos about that. She had pain in her stomach, and it was caused by anxiety. And it was the anxiety that Shari had was caused by Ruby's abuse, and Ruby was just like, diet and exercise, that'll help it. The kids always had to walk on eggshells around, and they were all terrified of Ruby. Every single child, and we could see that in video. They were terrified of Ruby. Ruby was a tyrant. Okay, the book should be called Ruby the Tyrant. And as she was
talking and writing her book and reading this out, it gave me ghostings of Bonnie. And this idea of conditional love. And if you watch any of Bonnie's old vlogs and any of these, I don't know. I didn't watch any of Ellie's and Jared's stuff. I didn't watch it. I'll be honest with you. So I don't know. But I can see those inklings in Bonnie for sure that everything is conditional. Every single thing, like, especially when it comes to like the one thing that Bonnie gets really, really hauled on for is the blanket training. Everything's conditional. They need everything to be about themselves, and everybody needs to comply to everything that they want only. Even in the argument with her husband, Bonnie was like, everything's conditional. Everything needs to be about me. And Bonnie is Ruby, except for the really, really bad stuff that she did to her children. But they are the identical, and that's why Bonnie escaped. That's why she went to Florida. Because she knows that everybody's coming out and realizing that they are two peas in a pod. So chapter 4, Shari did not have a bond with Ruby and just came to terms that I'm just not going to have a good mother. And Ruby was like, we'll be friends when you have children. Because she realized that's when Ruby became friends with her mother. Her mother had presented her with Ruby's mother presented her with a pair of silk pajamas when she had given birth to one of the kids. And Shari was like, will I get silk pajamas? And the grandmother's like, yep, when you have kids. And she realized at that moment that Ruby didn't have respect in her mother's eyes and Ruby's mother's eyes and the Griffiths' grandparents' eyes until she herself was a mother. And that's the Mormon culture in a nutshell. They weren't really close until they had achieved the things that they wanted them to achieve. They had to get married to earn the respect of their mothers. And I said, effing Mormons. Ruby would hit and yell. Chapter 5, tithings to the church. This chapter is really, really, really heavy about the LDS. And she does not speak negatively about LDS at all. If anything, I think she's using this book to evangelize for LDS. And so just skip chapter 5. If you don't want to be evangelized about the LDS. And because she talks about but she does say that family vlogging is very, very much, it goes hand in hand with evangelical Mormons, and that it really shows their life and their culture and everything else, and that the church really likes that. She did say that, but otherwise it's really about LDS. Chapter 6, she, again, abusing kids with slaps. She talks a lot about abuse. Chad had cut Shari's hair, so Ruby shaved his head in a reverse mohawk. Ruby had run into Shari's room, was like, what's this hair? And she was blaming Shari for it. Shari's like, no, Chad just did it. We were just playing around, and she didn't want to throw him under the bus, but she sort of did. So Ruby grabs Chad, takes him in the bathroom. She hears buzzing, and she just shaved a line down his head. And that was it. And said, well, there you go. That's what she would do. She would retaliate against her own children. It's insanity what she did to Chad. Chad arguably has way more trauma than any other child in this family, and I hope one day Chad writes a tell-all book too. Hopefully can maybe connect with this author too that Shari used. Chad's tell-all book will be enormously very valuable to this talk. And maybe he doesn't want to relive it, and that's his prerogative too, and I'll respect that. But if Chad ever has a chance to do a tell-all when he gets a little older, we'll be reading that, I promise you. The traumas that kid endured are likely worse than Shari's. Okay? Because they sent him to like camps and stuff like that, and he suffered enormous amounts, and this is all I know from the first 15 chapters, so I'm just saying he went through some stuff. Chapter 7, they talk about how they never wanted friends over because of how shitty Ruby was. They never really had really close friends, but surprisingly enough, Ruby did let them watch The Simpsons and SpongeBob. That surprised me a little bit. Shari compares her mom to Umbridge, Professor Umbridge from Harry Potter. That perfect, absolutely, yep. Perfect. Shari talks about how she used to pick her lips because of anxiety, and her mother would tell her to stop, but she couldn't stop it. So then she started journaling, and then that's when she probably has journals this thick of every shit thing her mother did to her. It was impossible to relax and have fun whenever Ruby was around. So whenever they went on vacations, they likely had a great time with their family. Ruby becomes obsessed with West Point. So as punishments, she makes them run around the block 5 times. So she sees West Point, and if someone gets in line, it's 20 push-ups, 100 push-ups, it's run this, run that. So she starts doing military drills to punish her children. Ruby always reminded Shari that she's not her friend, she's her mother. When she's an adult, we can be friends. Which is fine. I understand that too. We're not really meant to be our kids' friends. It's nice that we are, but we're also parents. But Ruby always made it a point to say, no, we're not friends. We'll never will be friends. But I'm only here to be your captain. That was very telling. Chapter 8, they talk about the channel and the success of it all. What was next? Ruby needed outlets. And so Bonnie and Ellie were seeing a lot of success and making good money. And when Ellie finally got pregnant, she hit 1,000 subs and got monetized, and her income exploded. Bonnie started in 2013 doing the same stuff, and then family vlogs were exploding at this point, like big time. So Ruby gets inspired and starts a channel and was looking for admiration. Not necessarily the money. And she wanted to best her sisters too. Then 8 Passengers was born. January 2015, it launched. That's crazy. 10 years ago. 10 years ago in 8 days. 10 years ago. That's crazy. Shari admits family blogging is an LDS thing. It's passive missionary work for LDS. The biggest earners are LDS, and it's true. Some of the biggest family vloggers out there have all been LDS. Crazy, because they have to pull from the millions and millions of LDS people to watch their content, because LDS people watch safe content. I've said that a million times about the LDS church. The camera was always on, and the January 8th, the first video was uploaded with the cake gender reveal that they had filmed earlier, but not for the vlog. They just used it, and Kevin is disappointed that it's a girl. She remarks, Ruby encourages kisses and signs of love, which is not true because it was lying on camera. The live soon revolved around making content. Nothing was off limits, and the other members were also using their kids for their videos too, like Bonnie. Shari wanted to grow up without the camera, but everything was shared, zits and all. She realizes that some of the stuff was so embarrassing, but she definitely had to do it because she had to please her mother. And then she started using it as leverage, and the internet loved it, and she posted more. So every moment was mined for content, is something that Shari said. July 9th, 2015, they become monetized, which is, 7 months after she starts, which is, whatever. And then she goes viral for her kid crawling out of the crib or something, gets out of a crib. It goes massively viral, and that scared the shit out of Shari. 50 million views later, they gained hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and they only went viral once to get to that level. It only takes to go viral once on YouTube, or to go viral in any capacity that you can capitalize on it. Look at Hawk Tua. That girl literally went viral for talking about spitting on a wiener, and then massively capitalized on it, and now might go to jail. But that's another story. But you can capitalize off going viral. If you go viral and you don't capitalize on it, you'll disappear just as fast as you came, just so you're aware. And then chapter 10, they talked about remodeling the home for the camera. Before that, everything was yellow and gross, and after it was all sterilized. Shari figures out that she has leverage, and this is important because a lot of these kids will use this as leverage, and they will they will say, hey, look, I'll be in this video, but I want this, that, and the other thing, and these kids deserve it. Shari finds out about tax loopholes, and everything they did was a write-off at a very young age, and they were writing it off. She's like, if you want to go get ice cream with your friends, take the credit card, but you have to film it, and then they can write it off as content. Brand deals exploded, all expense paid vacations, huge money starts rolling in. October 15th, 2015, films a video about miscarriage, and it doesn't go viral, but it adds hugely to their channel, and Shari is conflicted with sharing that type of message. She's like, that child has their story shared, and they're in heaven, but my brothers and sisters and I, we don't get to choose that, basically is what she said there. But she says the real and raw nature of family vlogs is what keeps people subscribing. But it's all fake. She says, what does consent look like when you're too afraid to say no? That's one of the most important lines so far of this book that I've read. What does consent look like when you're too afraid to say no? Because so many parents are out there saying, my kid wants to do this, they love doing this, they take that as consent. But none of these kids want to let their parents down, regardless if they're scared of them or not. You don't want to let your parent down. No kid wants to let their parent down. So the consent can never be had. She may have said she wanted to, which Ruby would say, and a lot of family vloggers, they all say this. So they want to, because the kids say it. But again, what does consent look like when you're scared to say no? You think the kid's going to say, no, I hate it. No, because they want the things that you're going to give them. You're going to coerce them into it. So chapter 11, Shari started her own channel for cash. Ruby said she's going to manage her earnings, and Shari's afraid of that. Shari asks for a shout out, and Ruby says, no way. She says, I don't shout anybody out that has less than 100,000 subscribers. She says, you get that, and then I'll give you a shout out. And then I wrote, what an effing bitch. Her own daughter, she wouldn't give a shout out to unless she has 100,000 subscribers. Oh my gosh. Shari says that it's hard. She's like, anybody who tells you that vlogging is not hard, she's like, it is hard. And I wrote, it's not hard. It's time consuming, but it's not hard. The life that these people lead, they get into this like thing. It's hard on your psyche, and it's hard on like your mind, and it's hard on all that. But like as far as jobs are concerned, it's one of the easiest jobs in the world. Shari admits this is a very, very important line too. Shari admits that she used her siblings to get ahead. Period videos, shaving legs. She knew it was wrong, but she knew it would bring views. She says the personal stuff like that is what brings in the money. She doesn't allude to the fact that the people who are watching are predators. She doesn't say that at all. But she says she admits it's wrong. She's sad that she did it, but she realized that those are the things that brought in the most views. Periods, shaving legs, really personal videos. Ruby was so proud about it being authentic, but Shari knew the truth all along. The comments left her uneasy, that people knew everything about them. She would comment about how people would, in the comments, say, I know everything about them, and I wish they were my brother and sister, and I wish you were my parents. And Shari was reading all these things, realizing how fake it was. Ruby loved all those comments too, and she would often come into the rooms and be like, read this comment from a fan, and they'd be like, you changed my life, and now I go to church, and all this stuff. And Shari's just like, this is all lies. 13-year-old at school, she walked into school. Shari was invited finally to the popular table. So this is when they were going viral, getting famous. She was then started to get noticed by kids at school, the popular kids. And she went and sat with them, and she felt, wow, this fame has helped me be welcomed into the popular tables. And she thought this was a positive part of social media. But she realized that they just only wanted to be friends with her so they could up their own social medias. And she caught onto that real early because she's smart. And this boy that she was crushing on would give her attention and the YouTube fame had changed. She's like, this guy that I liked finally gave me attention, and it changed everything for her. She downloaded Snapchat in secret to talk to this boy because Ruby needed Shari to have approval of everything until she was 18 years old. And Ruby did, though. In one case here, Ruby would veto certain posts. Like Shari said she was doing a video where she was doing the splits in the air. And Ruby's like, no sexual content. So I'm like, in certain things she would hypersexualize her children in her own content, but if they wanted to put it out there, she'd say no. Which, okay, I get. But basically anytime that Shari wanted to post anything, Ruby had to give her the go-ahead to do it. But Shari says it wasn't about protecting the child. It was about protecting the image and the brand and management. And then she goes on to say that the boy finally had a crush on her. Then those girls turned on her, and she was bullied because of it. So where they first liked her, now she got attention from the boy that they liked, and then they hated her. So it was a blessing and a curse. And she admits because of her fame, she got the boy that she might not have gotten. Her parents found out she had Snapchat, so her mother hid her phone in the closet, and then she snuck up into her parents' room and got it out, and she was starting to become more bold in that. But she realized she had leverage. She did have leverage. And this might have changed the abuse to some degree because, it's so, I find it so odd that these people live such crazy secret lives that I don't think it's ever going to come out one day. But again, she said it was never about safety. It was only the image of the family. And Ruby would put the career of the whole family on the kids' shoulders and make them feel guilty about it. Chapter 12, she reflects on comments of the channel that are negative. These strangers knew way too much of her life, and she was scared. The subs didn't know the consequences behind the camera. She wasn't sucking up. This is another great line. She wasn't, because they would call her little suck up, mommy's little suck up and everything. They thought she was just a mirror image of Ruby, and that she would rat on her brothers and sisters and this and that and the other thing. But Shari says she wasn't sucking up. She was surviving. She was surviving in the back end of this video. And that was her way of surviving. That was a really powerful line. She told her dad she was depressed and didn't want to live anymore. And this part got a little bit crazy. And once Ruby found out, because she told Kevin, because Kevin was safer, and Kevin's like, let's get you some help. Once Ruby found out, Ruby didn't care. She really didn't. She just said, just diet and exercise. That's all you need. And Kevin's like, no. And apparently they had a big argument about this, and Kevin wanted her to get into therapy and all that kind of stuff. And Shari at this point states that she hates her mother. At this point, 8 passengers, I don't know if she states she hates her mother, but I read into the lines that she hates her mother at this point. At this point, 8 Passengers has over 1 million followers. The sticker on the van was recognized on the road a lot. People would wave at them. Ruby starts bribing the kids to be in videos, like the eyebrow video. So she botched her daughter's eyebrows, and she had to go to school with sunglasses on, and she said, I'll give you $100 to do this video. And apparently she never even got the $100. The video drops and gets hundreds of thousands of views of her eyebrows getting botched, and she had to live through that through school and get bullied for it. One day she's pulling Shari out of her school because she doesn't want her to be in that school, and they put her in an LDS school, and so Shari's just distraught, just getting crapped on, just like Chad did. Shari was then starting to have panic attacks. So her life is shit up to this point. Okay, just garbage. She starts talking a little bit about Chad's life in here. She compares Ruby to Gollum from Lord of the Rings, which is it's quite a very poignant piece of the story, because they talk about the ring being the power, and what you do with it is corrupting. And she says, my mom got the ring, which is fame, social media, and it corrupted her to the point she was like Gollum. She became unrecognizable. She was a terrible person. Gollum was like a shadow of his former self, and that's what she compared it to. Very, very good part of the story. Very good way of saying it. Ruby cancels her therapy because she says the therapist was like, she's all good, And you can tell Shari's mad at the therapist, because if it's true that the therapist told that to Ruby, Shari's upset with the therapist. Shari's throwing Dr. Winters, which is the sheriff, because she names the doctor, under the bus here. Shari begs to go, but Ruby's convinced she's just being a drama queen. And if the therapist did contact, they put her in an LDS therapy, right? They didn't put her in no one outside the LDS church. That's an LDS therapist. Chapter 15, September 2017, they hit 1 million subscribers. Ruby has a vlog voice. This is a really, really interesting part of the story. The kids knew when the cameras were rolling because Ruby's voice would change. They knew that she's like, "Hi, Passengers fam," or the way that she would speak, they knew the camera was on, and they knew they had to change their personalities because they knew she was coming into the room and she was vlogging with a camera. That was their trigger. And I've said that about kids growing up on social media for a lot of years, that their parents are two different types of people when the camera's on, when the camera's off, and these kids are groomed to know that. And that's actually crazy. Groomed to smile, groomed to be somebody different completely on camera. That's so sad, by the way. That's absolutely sad. That the only time you get a good parent, quote unquote, is when the camera's turned on. Yeah, and on the way to the doctor, she hit 1 million. She had a counting down, and she was live streaming the countdown to 1 million. She was taking one of her kids to the doctor. On the way, she pulled over to celebrate. And then the video goes on to be an urgent care. It's just crazy, like so selfish. And that's as far as I got, because there's so much more that I'll be reading. I'm having her read it to me, but basically I want to ingest this whole thing before I'll just do parts as I go, because it's gonna be a super duper long video. But up to this point, everything is as we knew it was, and this is as it is for like every kid. It's in a family vlog. This is as it really is. Parents are fake when they're on camera. Everything you see is fake for the internet. That's not real. None of it's legit, but they always say it's real and raw. No, it's all fake. And those kids have to experience two different types of lives. And sometimes they have to be coerced. Sometimes they get the leverage they want to get the things that they need, but they have to use leverage to get it. They have to bribe their parents and tell them, "Man, I don't want to be in this video unless you give me these things." That's a life these kids have to live. That's insane. So to hear all this is just basically us saying we were right. And I hate to say a toe-to-so, but a F and a toe-to-so, okay? We're right. We've always been right. And every time a kid comes out on the other side from one of these and tells these types of stories, we end up just being justified every single effing time. And Shari's telling her story here, and we're really excited to hear it. Again, go buy her book. Go get the Audible if you want to. Get it, support her, read it. Tell me what your most important favorite parts of the book are below if you read it together. And again, these are all going to be spoilers, but thank you, Shari, for telling your story. It's important to this whole community and these kids who are already being exploited. I hope that you called out Bonnie and your other aunts and uncles in this. I really, really hope that happens. So thank you for being here, everybody. Take a deep breath. Feels like sometimes we do these videos, we're like, yeah, like these are pinnacles of our conversation. It's pinnacles of this topic. And every time, it's rarely that we're ever proved wrong. I don't think ever. We're always proved right. Our gut is right about this. What we're seeing is in 10 years, we're going to look back and be like, I cannot believe we allowed this. I cannot believe social media allowed this to be a thing. We're going to look back and be like, could you believe that social media did this? And like, we're all going to be like, holy cow, like that's the craziest thing I ever heard, because we're going to look back and say, holy shit. And Shari is a big part of that. She's telling us all about that. So thank you guys for being here for these incredible, incredible stories. You are amazing. You are valuable. Don't you forget it. And I'll see you when I see you.